my parents said. Your sister's needs always come first. Then acted confused when I finally stopped helping. Hi, I'm Daniel, 36, and I didn't know how clearly my family had ranked me until my mother said it out loud at dinner. Not angry, not emotional, just calm. Your brother's family always comes first. You're always last. My dad nodded like it was basic math. My brother smirked into his wine. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just said, good to know. Because something snapped in that moment. Not my heart, my loyalty. Part 1. I grew up in a house in Boulder that looked perfectly average from the outside. Trim lawn, 2-car garage, wind chimes on the porch. Inside? Different story. If you stood still long enough, you could actually feel the room shifting around my older brother, like everything was gravitationally arranged to orbit him. Chris had a kind of magnetism that didn't need to be earned. People just gravitated. Conversations bent in his direction. Schedules were rearranged if he had a dentist appointment. If he failed, it was a fluke. If I succeeded, it was expected. I learned early what role I played, the one who didn't need help. The one who figured it out. The one they bragged about to friends but forgot to text back. I wasn't unloved. That's the hardest part to explain. I was loved technically. Through praise like, he's so responsible. And, Daniel's got it handled. Love that sounded flattering but came with invisible conditions. Don't cause problems. Don't ask for anything. Be low maintenance so we can keep focusing on Chris. I saw it in birthdays, mine forgotten until the last minute, cake from the discount bakery, while his was custom ordered and color themed. In college send-offs, mine was a wave from the driveway, his was a family airport drop-off with tears and luggage tags. When he crashed his car, my parents took out a loan. When I needed new tires, I got a lecture about budgeting. And I accepted it. Not because I was okay with it, but because for most of my life, I thought maybe they were right. Maybe needing less made me more noble. Stronger. Smarter. I wore self-sufficiency like armor. But underneath? I was tired. And I didn't even realize how tired until the night I heard my mom say it out loud, like I was last place in a race I never signed up for. Nothing changed after that dinner. Not on the surface. Same texts. Same rhythm. But inside me, something had shifted. A few days later, my dad called asking if I could help them out a little. Chris had hit a rough patch with his business. My mom chimed in with, just for a bit, until things stabilize. That was their favorite word. Stabilize. I used to hear it and reach for my wallet. This time, I reached for silence. And for the first time in 36 years, I let them sit in it. My silence didn't go unnoticed. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, another text. Just checking if you saw our message. Day 3, a call from my mom with that tone, you know the one. Sweet but strained, like syrup poured over gravel. Are you okay? You've been distant. I was distant. Intentionally. Not out of spite, but out of survival. See, I'd started noticing just how many pieces of my life had been quietly dedicated to everyone else. Money that left my account like a leak I'd never patched. Time I kept flexible. Just in case. Plans I canceled before I made them, in anticipation of someone else's crisis. When I didn't answer right away, nothing exploded. That shocked me. The world didn't collapse. No one came pounding on my door. No child went unfed. Life just kept going. And that realization? That was the scariest and most liberating moment of my adult life. I started saying no. Not dramatically. Not cruelly. Just quietly. I can't this weekend. I'm not available. That's not going to work for me. Every no was followed by silence. Then confusion. Then guilt-shaped concern. Chris texted me 3 times in one day, then left a voicemail that started with, "Hey man," and ended with, "Let me know when you're done being weird." He wasn't used to me setting boundaries. He was used to me being the unofficial insurance policy for the entire family. Unspoken, unpaid, and infinite. I mean, why wouldn't he be? I trained them all. But here's what no one tells you. The moment you stop performing a role you've been stuck in since childhood, people don't thank you. They panic. They think something's wrong with you. A week later, my mom called again. "We really need to talk," she said. "Can you come home this weekend?" No explanation. Just that calm urgency that always meant, Chris did something dumb with money, and we need you to be the grown-up again. I said yes. not because I was planning to help. Because this time, I was going to see exactly how deep the hole went, and decide, for the first time in my life, whether I was willing to fall in with them. When I pulled into the driveway of my parents' house, everything looked the same. Same wind chimes. Same porch swing. Same faded bumper sticker on my dad's truck about fiscal responsibility, which would have been hilarious if I wasn't walking into a financial disaster of their own making. Inside, the tension hit like humidity. Heavy. Clinging. Chris was already there, sitting on the couch, slouched like a kid waiting for detention to end. His wife, Nicole, paced the perimeter like she was rehearsing a legal defense. My mom greeted me with a quick hug that smelled like nervous perfume. My dad didn't stand up. No one asked how my drive was. Instead, my mom launched into a monologue, something about a bad investment, some contracts Chris signed that sounded great at the time, and how the economy just isn't fair to small businesses right now. I sat in silence, watching the script unfold like a movie I'd already seen. Every sentence dipped in. This isn't our fault. But we really thought it would work. Eventually, my dad cleared his throat. You're in a good place, Dan. You've always been smart with your money. You could really help us get over the hump. There it was. The moment I knew was coming. The pitch. Dressed in praise, wrapped in obligation. Chris chimed in. Look, I wouldn't ask, man. But we're in a tight spot. Just until this project closes. Then I can pay you back. The project didn't have a name. It never did. I took a deep breath. So, what happens if I don't? The silence that followed wasn't just quiet, it was offended. My mom blinked like I'd just sworn in church. My dad's jaw twitched. Chris tilted his head, confused. What do you mean if you don't? I said slowly. What's the plan if I say no? If I don't bail you out? Chris laughed. Not a funny laugh, a disbelieving one. Come on, man. You're not seriously gonna, after everything? After everything, I repeated. You mean after years of shouldering the financial fallout of decisions I didn't make? After being last at the dinner table and first on the emergency contact list? That shut him up. I looked at my parents. You guys ranked me. Out loud. At dinner. And you're still sitting here asking like it's obvious I'll step in. Why? My dad finally spoke. Because you're the only one who can. I stood. That's not a reason. That's an excuse. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear on my brother's face. Not fear of losing money, but fear of losing the version of me who always said yes. I wasn't that man anymore. I didn't storm out. I didn't yell. I just picked up my jacket, looked them in the eye, and said, I'll think about it. Which, in my family, was a revolutionary act. Because thinking about a request had never been an option for me. My role was to absorb the chaos. Quietly. Efficiently. Without hesitation. Back at my hotel, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall like it owed me answers. The room felt too quiet, like my ears were still ringing from years of unspoken expectations. I called my friend Alex. He's a financial advisor with a sarcastic streak and zero tolerance for guilt trips. So let me guess, he said after I recapped the day. They want a loan, don't have a plan, and you're supposed to save the day. Again? Basically, I said. They're not even pretending this time. He exhaled. You know what the worst part is? They genuinely think they're asking nicely. I laughed. A bitter one. And they think I'm being cold for not jumping in. He paused. You're not cold, man. You're just finally learning the difference between being generous and being used. That stuck with me. The next morning, I walked into a law office and sat down with a woman named Elena who wore all black, smiled once, and didn't flinch when I said the words, legally structured loan. She nodded. You're protecting yourself from emotional debt disguised as financial generosity. She got it. By the end of the meeting, we'd drafted an airtight document. Conditions. Timelines. Interest rates. Exit clauses. And, because I insisted, a clause that required financial counseling and family therapy for the duration of the repayment period. It wasn't revenge. It was protection. Not just for me, but for them too. Because if I was going to help, we weren't going to pretend this was normal. We were going to face every ugly part of the dysfunction we'd been painting over for decades. I printed 3 copies and slid them into a folder. And for the first time since that dinner, I slept through the night. When I walked back into my parents' house that weekend, the energy was different. Not warm. Not hopeful. Just braced. Chris was already sitting at the table, arms folded tight across his chest like he'd already decided to be offended. My dad was pacing near the window. My mom stood behind the counter pretending to rinse a mug that didn't need rinsing. No one spoke. I sat down and placed the folder on the table. "This," I said, tapping the cover, "is what I'm willing to do. No more. No less." Chris leaned forward like he was expecting a check. My dad leaned back like he was expecting a story. My mom stopped rinsing and stared like she was expecting me to change my mind before I opened it. I didn't. I slid the folder forward. "It's a loan. Structured. With terms. You'll find them all inside. I'm not asking for anyone's approval. I'm just stating my boundaries." Chris scoffed the second he saw the first page. "You're charging interest?" I met his eyes. "I'm charging accountability." My dad picked up the packet and squinted. "You're making us go to therapy?" "I'm making sure we don't keep repeating the same cycles and calling it love." That's when my mom finally sat down. She looked tired. More than tired. Worn. "This isn't how family is supposed to work," she said softly. I nodded. "I agree. That's why I'm changing how I participate." Chris pushed his chair back, pacing now. "So if we don't sign this, you're just gonna walk away?" "No," I said. "If you don't sign it, you're choosing not to walk toward me. That's different." They went quiet again. That kind of thick silence where you can practically hear people deciding how angry they're allowed to be before they lose your help. Finally, my dad said, "Can we have some time to think about it?" I stood. "You've got 48 hours. After that, the offer's gone." My brother shook his head like he couldn't believe I'd just put an expiration date on their crisis. But I had. And I meant it. Because being the reliable one didn't mean I had to be the disposable one. The next 48 hours were silent. No follow-up texts. No angry voicemails. Just a vacuum where my family's constant noise used to live. It was almost disorienting. Like walking through your childhood home after it's been emptied out. Same walls, no wait. I went back to my hotel and waited. Not anxiously. Just aware. Aware that this might be the last time I played this role. That if they didn't sign, I wasn't going to keep performing unconditional support while they treated me like an ATM with a face. On the second evening, my mom called. "We've read it," she said. Her voice sounded smaller than usual. "And? We have questions. You have a pen?" She laughed. Not a real one. One of those brittle laughs you do when your pride's bruised and you're trying to save face. "Daniel, do you really think we'd screw you over?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The folder was the answer. So she sighed. "Your father's struggling with this. He says it feels cold." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "It isn't cold. Cold is ignoring the problem until it buries us all. This is clarity." "And the therapy part?" she asked, like it was a dirty word. "It's non-negotiable. This isn't just about money. It's about how we got here. And if that part doesn't change, I'm not investing a cent." I could hear her breathing shift. Could hear her getting it, even if she hated that she did. "I'll let you know in the morning," she said. I ended the call, poured myself a whiskey, and sat on the balcony watching headlights drift through the streets below. I didn't feel triumphant. Or righteous. Or even angry anymore. I just felt done. Done with being the fallback plan for people who never planned for me. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my mom. "We'll sign." No fanfare. No emojis. No guilt syrup preamble. Just two words that carried 36 years of expectation cracking under their own weight. I walked into the house at noon sharp. The three of them were already seated at the dining table, the folder sitting between them like a live wire. Chris looked like he hadn't slept. My dad stared down at his hands. My mom tried for a smile and landed somewhere near polite defeat. "Let's get started," I said. They signed in silence. My dad's pen hovered over the signature line a full 5 seconds before he finally pressed down, his initials small and tight like he was trying to write around his own resentment. Chris signed quickly but wouldn't look at me. My mom signed last, then slid the folder back across the table without meeting my eyes. I flipped through to confirm everything. No skipped lines. No creative edits. Just ink, official and binding. Chris spoke first. So, now what? I stood up. Now you follow the terms. Budget gets reviewed monthly. Therapy sessions start next week. I'll wire the first installment once the financial counseling appointment is confirmed. My dad frowned. You don't trust us to follow through? I trust the agreement, I said. My mom swallowed hard. You've changed. I've grown, I corrected. I grabbed the folder and turned to leave. My brother stopped me at the door. Dan, he said, voice lower than usual, almost human. Why now? After all this time, why draw the line here? I looked him dead in the eyes. Because when Mom said I was always last, I realized she was right, and I'd been keeping myself there by pretending it didn't matter. He didn't respond. And I didn't wait. At first, the changes were superficial. Subscriptions cancelled. Credit cards cut. Chris sold one of his 2 cars, not the fancy one, of course, but a start. My parents listed the mountain cabin they rarely used but loved to brag about. The money moved. Predictably late the first week, but it arrived. Counseling was scheduled. Receipts were uploaded. For the first time in our family history, financial transparency existed somewhere besides in my imagination. But the biggest shift? The tone. No more subtle guilt trips. No more. It must be nice. Jabs about my apartment, my vacations, my single life like they were trophies I stole instead of things I earned. Family therapy started off like a hostage negotiation. My dad talked like he was at a job interview. My mom cried anytime anyone said the word resentment. Chris was defensive as hell, arms crossed the whole time, like the truth physically hurt. But the therapist, this brilliant woman named Carmen, wasn't there to coddle anyone. At one point, she looked at Chris and said, "When did you decide your brother's success was yours to borrow?" Dead silence. Chris opened his mouth, then closed it. His wife squeezed his arm like a button she could press to stop him from saying something stupid. By session 3, my parents were starting to acknowledge how often they defaulted to me because I didn't push back. My mom said something that stuck. "We thought you were fine, because you never collapsed." I smiled. "That's the problem. You wait until someone breaks before you believe them." Not dramatic. Just the truth. I wasn't trying to teach them a lesson anymore. I wasn't trying to get an apology. I just wanted my life back. And I wanted them to stop treating my stability like a family asset on standby. Back in Seattle, I slept better. My inbox stopped being a silent to-do list full of family crises. My weekends were mine again. And the most surreal part? No one died from it. They adjusted. They stumbled. They slipped. But they started learning how to carry their own weight, even if some days it looked like a toddler trying to lift a suitcase. Progress. The real test came 6 months later. Chris called early morning, which was rare. "I need to talk," he said, voice tight. I braced. He'd lost another contract. One that was basically guaranteed, his words, and now he was looking at a shortfall. Not as big as last time. Manageable, he said. Just a temporary gap. "Okay," I said. "So what's your plan?" He paused. "I've got 2 options. One involves downsizing the office. The other is a short-term business loan, but the interest rate sucks. Just figured I'd loop you in before I made the call." I waited. The pitch never came. "You're not asking me for money," I said slowly. He chuckled, awkward and a little defeated. "No, man. I'm just talking to my brother." I didn't say anything for a second. Because that right there? That was the first time in over a decade that Chris called me without trying to transfer a burden. "Thanks," I said. And I meant it. That weekend I flew home for Dad's birthday. Nothing fancy. Just barbecue and a store-bought cake. No speeches. No tense undercurrents. Just family. Real, flawed, weirdly adjusting family. At one point, my mom pulled me aside. Her eyes look softer these days. Less calculating. More curious. "I read a book," she said, "about parentification. I didn't know there was a word for it." I smiled. "There's a word for everything once you're ready to understand it." She nodded. "You were always so good at holding it all together. We didn't realize how much we were handing you. You didn't want to realize," I said gently. "But now you do." We stood there for a second. Not hugging. Not crying. Just standing in a kind of mutual awareness we never shared before. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was standing outside my own family watching them make space for each other. I was in the room. Fully. No one said I came first. That's not what I needed. I just wasn't last anymore. 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email. Not a text. An actual envelope, addressed in my mom's handwriting, like it was 1997 again. Inside was a thank you card. Just 2 sentences. Thank you for holding the line, even when it made you the villain. We're better for it. No signature. No P.S. Just that. I sat with that card for a long time. Not because it fixed anything, but because it didn't try to. It acknowledged. And sometimes, acknowledgement is a bigger apology than an apology. A few nights later, I met some friends for drinks. I told them pieces of the story, left out the legal docs, kept the therapy bit. One of them, Max, who's known me since college, leaned back and said, "Man, I've known you 15 years. That's the first time I've seen you talk about your family without flinching." He was right. I wasn't bracing anymore. Not for guilt. Not for panic. Not for sudden financial requests wrapped in emotional strings. Because I had cut those strings, not with a knife, but with clarity. Not to punish them, but to protect myself. It didn't make me colder. It made me honest. And honesty, it turns out, is a kind of warmth too. In early spring, I flew home for a weekend, not because someone asked, not because there was a crisis, just because I felt like it. That had never happened before. Chris picked me up from the airport. No passive-aggressive jokes about my frequent flyer miles. No awkward silences stretching across the freeway. Just music, small talk, and him asking if I wanted to grab tacos before heading to Mom and Dad's. We sat at a little spot we used to love in high school, same cracked vinyl booths, same guy at the register who still didn't smile. Chris dipped a chip in salsa and said, "Therapy's been weird." "Good, but weird." I nodded. "Yeah. That tracks." He glanced around the restaurant like he was checking to make sure no one was recording. "I didn't realize how much crap I dumped on you over the years. I really thought you liked being the one who held everything together." I shrugged. "That's the thing about being useful. People assume you're fine just because you're functional." He laughed, genuine this time. "Yeah. Guess that goes for more than just you." We didn't dwell on it. No dramatic handshakes. No. I've changed. Speech. Just tacos and shared understanding. That was enough. At the house, my parents greeted me at the door with an energy I didn't recognize. Not tension. Not desperate gratitude. Just normal, aging parent warmth. "Your room's all made up," my mom said. "Well, it's the office now, but there's a pull-out couch with only a slight slope to it." I grinned. "Fancy." That night, we played cards like we used to when I was a kid. No one brought up money. No one cried. No one asked me for anything. And maybe that was the proof of progress. Because for the first time in my life, my presence wasn't tied to a purpose. I was just there. And that was enough. Summer rolled in quiet and slow, and with it came something unfamiliar: consistency. The loan repayments landed on time. The therapy sessions didn't stop after the first month. My parents even started using a shared budgeting app, which, frankly, I never thought I'd live to see. Chris still struggled. He always would. He was the kind of guy who chased sparks like they were certainties. But now, when things didn't go as planned, he didn't automatically reach for my name like it was a lever marked to fix everything. Instead, he'd text me updates. Just updates. Not obligations. "Got a new client today. Thinking of switching banks. Nicole and I took the kids camping. I didn't drop my phone in the lake this time." And I'd reply. Not out of duty, but because I wanted to. We were slowly becoming brothers again, not just characters in a family imbalance I had outgrown. One night I got a call from my dad, just him, not on speaker, not on behalf of anyone else. "I wanted to say thanks," he said, a little stiff, "for setting boundaries. I didn't see it at first, but I think we needed them more than you did. That sentence alone could have stopped the earth. I know I was hard on you," he added. "Made a lot of assumptions. About what you could carry. What you'd tolerate. And I know I never really asked if you were okay. I just assumed if you were quiet, that meant yes." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "Yeah. I used to think that too." We talked for a while, about nothing and everything. His knees were acting up. He was thinking of getting a dog. He asked if I was seeing anyone, and for once, it didn't feel like a setup for a guilt trip. It just felt like a father asking his son how life was going. And you know what? It was going really well. 1 year later, I stood at my parents' kitchen counter, sipping coffee while Chris chased his youngest through the yard. No tension. No asks. Just a moment. My mom leaned beside me and said, "I'm glad you didn't let us keep doing it." I smiled. Me too. I wasn't the fixer anymore. Not the fallback. I was just Daniel. Still strong. But finally, not alone.